necessarily significant. Like, I'm not going to get into any type of, graphic detail or anything like that. If you watch my videos, you know that I really don't do that. But just because these topics will be touched upon in some way, I do want to share that at the top. So, for instance, if you are not necessarily comfortable hearing about any form of substance abuse or childhood trauma, before I tell you about the call, which I will, I promise. But I think it's first important that I take you back to high school with me, because without you having the context or understanding of this person and the role that they've played in my life, if even for a short time, then I think what's the point of me even telling this story, right? Just some regular Joe Schmo. Now I want to give you the context, and you're here for a close-up, cupped, whisper, storytime ramble. So we're going to talk about it, okay? So, rewind. We're back in high school now. Oh, I'm back in high school, and you're here with me. And it's freshman year, and I meet this person who is my friend, who becomes my friend. I always feel weird about sharing names, and I can never remember a fake name that I assigned someone, so I'm just gonna keep calling him my friend throughout this. So I meet this person who becomes my friend, and I will say that I came from a very small town, and our school system was very small. So for the most part, I knew absolutely everybody that I went to school with. That was just the nature of growing up where I did. And so when we got to high school, though, there were students from other towns that would come to our school district, because we had neighboring towns that were much smaller than ours, which truly hard to believe. Like, when I say small, I mean like we're talking like a handful of kids from each grade, okay? It's like small. But so small that they didn't have high schools. They would have like an elementary / middle school. And then for high school, they would come over to us and join our school district, essentially. So this was somebody that was completely new. Didn't know anybody, right? Because he was coming from a neighboring town, small town. He knew like the few people that he had grown up with in that town. So anyway, that's like a bunch of context you didn't really need, but I'm just like setting the scene, you know what I mean? So I didn't know this guy, but we were sat pretty close together in multiple classes because of our names, like alphabetically. And so like a lot of times we were just assigned based on our names, right? And so eventually we would start talking and get to know each other, and like we had a really good connection, I guess. Like we meshed very well personality wise. He was easy to talk to, you know. And so for freshman and sophomore year, we were like really tight. And I feel like in high school, I can look back now and say this, I feel like when you're in high school, you kind of just have no idea what's going on. Like you don't know who you are, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you want, you don't know how other people operate. And so for a while, there was a lot of this like, will they, won't they energy, like will they be more than friends? Like mentioned earlier, substance abuse issues, and that played a role in a lot of this. He drank a lot. He was a wonderful man, but he did carry a lot of demons with him. He did. And I'll get into that more later, I think. But again, we're just kind of setting the stage here. So it was challenging, my upbringing, and then it sort of came to a head and hit me in a really big way when he passed away. So again, it was like unexpected, but at the same time, it was something I had always feared because I knew he wasn't healthy, if that makes sense. Now, everybody copes differently with loss. And at the time I was 16, it was like days away from my 17th birthday. So, you know, in terms of development, pretty young. I didn't know how to handle that. I didn't have any friends who had lost their parents at that age. It wasn't something that, you know, I had talked about with people. I didn't know how to deal with it. And I remember the moment I found out that he had passed, I wasn't actually at the hospital at this time because it was way too dramatic. Like, it was not pleasant what was going on at the hospital, and I could not handle seeing it. It's not that I didn't want to be there, and that is like a sort of guilt that I have had to reconcile over time. But it was, I physically couldn't be there. So when I found out what had happened, I was around a whole bunch of family members, and for a little bit of time, I felt the worst I had ever felt in my life. And then after like 15-20 seconds, it shut off. Completely shut off. I went totally numb. Like, didn't feel a thing. Stopped crying, stopped feeling. I just kind of was staring off into space, like completely dissociated. And I know that that was a protective measure that my body and brain sort of did for me, which I appreciated because I'm not doing great before that, you know what I mean? I wasn't doing great. So again, like, that's important context because I was sort of in that state for a really long time. Like, well over a year. I was just completely numb. And I didn't know how to handle it. And so, I want to set the stage for what happened when I went back to school. And in hindsight, I went back way too quick. I thought I could handle it. I thought, you know, I could get through the day, do my thing, do my little thing, go home. Not the case. Not the case whatsoever. What ended up happening is I got to school, and everybody was treating me like an alien. And I think at that age, and honestly still now as adults, we have no idea how to handle that situation. We don't know how to be comforting or helpful, and it's scary. It's hard. Like, I do see that perspective. But people who were my closest friends were so cold to me, so dismissive, were avoiding me intentionally because they didn't know what to say. Which, again, I get it, but it made me feel so much more awful. Like, I wanted things to just feel normal. And I know that they couldn't. And I know that I wasn't feeling normal, but when I walked in, and it just wasn't what I was just a time where I felt really isolated from other people because I didn't know how to go on and pretend like nothing had happened and be a normal human being and experience joy and happiness and excitement when all I was thinking about was how my dad was gone. I didn't know how to do that. And it just kept feeling like I was disappointing people and people were pulling away from me, and I couldn't do anything about it. That's how it felt. And again, I'm like 17 at the time. Like, I don't have the skills or the tools to figure this out, and I refused to go into therapy at the time because I just didn't want to talk about it. I tried so hard to suppress it, but obviously there were impacts of that. And so, and when I say that I was feeling really alone during this time, like, I didn't have my family either. My mom and I were not on the greatest terms during that period because we were really just mourning independently. And of course, mourning for me meant just like shoving it all down and pretending it wasn't happening. And my mom was like totally the opposite. She would just cry in bed all day, all night. And so we were just sort of like living different lives at that time. I didn't go to her for anything. She didn't really come to me. She also was not really equipped to handle those emotions and those feelings. And my grandma and grandpa also like highly emotional, and like we just as a collective did not handle it well at all. But I was the only one who wouldn't cry. I wouldn't cry around them. I wouldn't talk about it. And of course, like, my family was concerned about this, but there was not really any getting through to me. And so yeah, I was completely avoidant and numbed out, and mind you, when I say I was numbed out, I don't mean I was taking anything. I never touched a thing, never drank, never, like, still to this day, I don't do any of that. But I just mean, like, physically and psychologically, like, I was in a different place. So that's how I was doing my junior year. And I remember that I set up a sort of schedule where I would go to school after classes were let out, so I could go pick up my homework. And I could like meet with some of my teachers for like tutoring, basically, because I was really struggling in class. And so there was a period of time where they would make accommodations for me so I could sort of avoid being around people. And some of my teachers would offer to help me out with like additional tutoring, which I really needed in classes like math. I was like always so awful in math. And shockingly, the woman who I was most terrified of was the kindest to me during that time, and like really spent the time with me and was so kind and was at the funeral, like, which was shocking because she was not nice on any other day of the week, but whatever, I was very grateful for that. And so I remember one day I was grabbing my stuff from my locker and about to head out because I had done that thing where I went in after the classes. I went and collected my homework and talked to my teachers and was like ready to go back home. And my friend comes walking down the hallway, and instantly I'm just like already pre-exhausted because, again, I did not want to talk to anybody. I had nothing to share. I was not okay. I just wanted to go home and go to bed. You know what I mean? Go be depressed, go to bed, wake up and do it again. That was it. And he stops by my locker and asks how I'm doing. showing up to my high school in that thing. Like, it had a crane and everything. Like, it was insane. So anyway, I get in the truck. And of course, he gets into the passenger seat. Did I ask for that? No. Was I very annoyed about that? Yes. And I was like, could you please get out of the truck? I just want to go home. I don't want to talk about it. I really don't want to talk about it. And he was like, I'm not leaving this truck until you do. And I was like, fine, well, I'm not going to say anything. And he's like, that's fine. We'll just sit here until you do feel like talking. And he did. And we sat there in silence for a while. And eventually I did start talking. And I talked until I couldn't talk anymore. And I started crying. And I started sobbing. And all of the things that I had held in at that time just came out. And he just sat there and he listened in a completely non-judgmental way. And just tried to comfort me and be there with me. And I thought about this last night, and I literally started crying. Like, I can't even express how badly I needed that. And he was the only person that tried to make that happen for me. And I know it's not much. It's just sitting with me and talking with me, but I couldn't ask for it. I didn't know how. I didn't even know that's what I needed or wanted, right? Because I was trying so hard to suppress all of it. But, he just knew. And he didn't care that I was being ruthlessly rude to him. He was just like, I know this is what you need. And so, I still think about that from time to time. Like, that's not something I will ever forget, and it's something that I will always remember and bring up if it ever, kind of comes up. Because, it was such a big deal to me. Huge. I'd say that was like one of the most significant moments of my high school career. Because I was in such a bad place. Such a bad place. And, just that small act of kindness, like, really meant a lot to me. So, it's not like after that we became best friends again or anything, you know what I mean? Like, but he was there for me in a way that nobody else was. Not my best friends, not my family. And I don't know why it was different. I know with my family, they were also carrying a lot of the baggage and the trauma, and we were all coping in our own ways, so I get that that was different, but I'll never forget that kindness that was shown to me that day. Like, I can still remember every part of it. There's not a lot that I really remember back then. I blocked a lot of it out. And, like, my timelines kind of get messed up sometimes, and I honestly have to think really hard about the date and the year that my dad passed away and, like, all of the other things that happened along with it. But there are certain things that stand out to me, and that is probably the thing that stands out the most. So, that is, I guess, the first story that I want to share, and, like, a pretty big one, pretty important. And I can already tell that this is probably gonna be, like, a video I have to pause and come back to, because I've been talking for a while already, and my camera is already down, like, 2 notches of battery. So annoying. This thing takes so long to charge, and it drains so quickly. But whatever, that's okay. We'll come back to it if we have to. But so anyway, that is some high school background for you. So moving back onto the phone call. Present day. guess. But we ended up talking for like an hour and a half, and it was totally normal. It was like no time had passed. And I love when that happens. That happens with some people. And it's just easy. And I love that. And I was really glad that it had happened. I thought, okay, I'm glad I said yes to this. Because many parts of me wanted to say no. Like, I'm good, thanks, bye. But just out of my own anxieties, right? So anyway, one of the big takeaways from that phone call, which shocked me, was that for the last decade, since we graduated high school, he had been dealing with substance abuse issues. And I had absolutely no idea. No idea. At the point of that phone call, he told me that he was now 5 months clean and sober. And of course I know that people who are struggling are often not sharing about it. And I'm talking substance abuse issues and any kind of issue, right? Like, we often don't make that obvious to people. And I know I hadn't talked to him in a long time, but I'm just saying, like, if you did any kind of social media sleuthing, you never would have guessed. You never, ever would have guessed. And so that broke my heart a little bit. But at the same time, when I heard more and he told me about all of the steps he was taking and how he was, really like proud of that 5-month sobriety, I also felt really, really proud of him. And I want to share that for anybody who is watching this who might be struggling with substance abuse, struggling to maintain sobriety, feeling like it is not possible. Because he is a recent example, right, that has come to my attention. But I do also want to share that while I myself have never dealt with a substance abuse issue, many of my family members have, many of my friends have, ex-partners have, many people in my close circles have struggled with those things immensely. And so I just want to reiterate something that I know that you hear all of the time, but it's true, that help is possible, that change is possible, healing is possible, and you don't have to go it alone. My friend goes to meetings every day, every single day, and everybody's process is going to look different, right? But it's working for him. He goes to meetings for AA and NA, so Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. And he has a sponsor, and he's, keeping busy with healthy activities. And I'm really, really happy for him. Obviously sad that he had gone through that for so long. But I'm happy that he's doing better, that he's doing well, even right now. That's not to say that he hasn't, had his moments of struggle where it's hard and it can be upsetting and frustrating and all of the rest, but it's possible, So again, I want to reiterate that for anybody who maybe needs to hear it right now, whether it's for you, a loved one, an acquaintance, whatever, it is possible, okay? And so I've been doing a lot of reflecting on that, and something that I will probably talk about in therapy. Because at this point in my life, and again, I'm 29, issues or have come to the point of acknowledging it and beginning to heal from it and to embrace sobriety. I know so much of that is genetic, and a lot of it is environmental as well. You know, you kind of have both sides of the coin. And people would tell me all the time, like extended family members, they'd be like, we don't know how you didn't end up like your dad. Which I think is a weird thing to say to someone at any age, to be clear. Like, I don't know why people would tell me that, but I've heard it from multiple people multiple times. And I don't know why either, you know what I mean? I think you can either end up like your parents, or you can end up completely different from your parents, right? We recognize these things as kids, and we all say, oh, we're never gonna do the things that we don't like that our parents do, but the reality is a lot of the time we do. We do. And so yeah, I think about that a lot. I think about the environments and the people, and how at the end of the day we're all just people who are longing for connection and longing for joy and longing for acceptance within ourselves. Something that my friend mentioned to me that also broke my heart a little bit was that he just didn't like being with himself, and that's why he had struggled for so many years. He didn't want to get to know himself. And I imagine that's how a lot of people feel. And there have been, like, don't get me wrong, there have been many times where I have also felt that way, especially growing up. Just wanting to be as far away from myself as possible, you know? And our society doesn't make it easy. We're taught to hate ourselves for so many different reasons. And you believe it eventually, a lot of the time. So it takes a lot of strength and courage to kind of go against those thoughts and feelings, right? And I think for a lot of people, they can get easily sucked into something that allows them to forget about those feelings. And of course, like anything else, it comes at a cost. So, I don't know, it just, for some reason, it felt important for me to talk about this today. It's been on my mind, and I hope it can be helpful to somebody, right? That change is always possible. And so yeah, I'm really glad that he reached out and that he's doing well. And we've been talking a little bit since then. level of human connection that I mentioned earlier. It's like, no matter how long it's been or how unlikely it is that you think you're going to reconnect with somebody, it's possible. Like I said, I couldn't tell you the last time I even thought about this person. Not in a mean way. Like, not in a mean way at all. Just in the sense of, we went our different ways and that was it. But it's so interesting how the world, the universe, whatever you want to say, whatever it is to you, sort of allows these things to happen. And I find that meaningful. It could mean absolutely nothing, but I attribute meaning to literally everything. So I was like, it was important for him to reach out. It was important for us to reconnect and for me to share this story today. There's meaning in that. And in the broad sense and on the sort of grand plane, we're looking for acceptance and meaning and fulfillment. And we're all here on this big spinning rock just trying to figure it out. Trying to figure out who we are, what we want to do. Trying not to hurt other people in the process, I hope. I mean, I'm not trying to. That doesn't mean I don't mess up sometimes. We all do. But it's like, so much can change, but also remain the same from the times where we're kids and teens and adults. Right? Like, I still feel like I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm trying to live a fulfilling life and make meaning and connect with good people and have people have good memories of me. I think a lot about my purpose and wanting to make the world a better place. And that also means having good interactions with people, right? So, anyway, that's what I've been thinking about. Kind of a mixed bag, kind of a jumbled up mess, a little bit. But, yeah, if any of that strikes a chord or sticks with you in any way, I'd love to hear. You're welcome to share in the comments below. But I just wanted to give you that little update, little story time / ramble about my past, my present, my views on life. I'll have more to say soon, but for now, I'll leave it there. So, as I predicted, my camera did die. It did die. I needed maybe like 10 to 15 more seconds, but it just wasn't in the cards for me. So, I had to pop it back on the charger, and then I went to the grocery store and got a bunch of ingredients to make pizza. What did I get? I got like a pre-made dough. I got spinach and basil and mushrooms and pine nuts. What else did I get? Oh, like the pizza sauce, obviously. What else? Was that it? And then I added a bunch of spices like cayenne pepper and I put a lot of garlic on, like way too much garlic. Nutritional yeast. And that was mostly it, I think. I just made it. I don't know why. I am not sure what was in it. But anyway, so I made that. I ate that. My roommate and I watched an episode of Farmer Wants a Wife. I don't know if any of you have seen that. It's like incredibly silly. But all of those kinds of shows are just something to pass the time. And now here I am back again to make my little closing message here.